The topic of the talk today is letting go of the pain from the past. And especially I would like to focus on forgiveness, because that is one part of letting go of the pain from the past. It is a very difficult topic, and I do feel it's a bit like the Buddhist path. It is a path, and it is something gradual, so don't expect to get instant answers today and then walk out of this room and your life will be, or all your problems will be solved. That's not really how it works. So we have to slowly erode things away in our life, especially those things that are difficult for us. And we erode them away or dissolve them with the positive things. So I hope I can give you some ideas, inspirations today, so you can either start walking on the path of forgiveness or you can carry on walking on it. But it is a path. It's not something instant or something that happens very quickly. Very good. So let's have a look. Right. Ouch. That's what happens in life. So that's one of the teachings of the Buddha that people often misunderstand. Yes, there is suffering in this world. Yes, we are going to be hurt. We are going to hurt people. That's just the human condition. But what a lot of people forget is that Band-Aid that is on there. So that's what we can actually do about this condition, or what we can do with this hurt that does happen from time to time. One thing that is not really helpful are these things: blame, guilt, and shame. I've often reflected about this, how it actually comes into this world, or why does it happen? And I do believe it's something that we learn over time. I don't think it's something that is there right from the beginning. And I've brought a picture here for you. I used to be a primary school teacher in the past. And I think it was Monday last week, we went to the Dhamma school in Daylesford. That's the kids from the Dhamma school there. And I've noticed when I was working with kids that, yes, they do have feelings, as we all do, but they usually pass much quicker. They don't really hold on to the pain that much. They don't have these concepts of blame, guilt, or shame as we have them. So because of that, it must be something that we learn, that we're conditioned to have, and therefore it's possible to decondition ourselves, to learn to go back to the more positive aspects that will help us not to have to carry on that hurt that happens sometimes. So the positive parts would then be love, understanding, and forgiveness. And that's something that Ajahn Brahm often mentions, and that's something I really love in his teachings. And I did a little quote book about 2 or 3 years ago, and I just wanted to share 2 of the quotes that are in that book that I think fit in quite nicely here. Real beauty does not lie in perfection, but in embracing and accepting imperfection. So if we would be perfect, then we wouldn't need forgiveness, because everything would just be all right. So it's just looking at it from another perspective. But the thing is that we often have this perfectionism, and we want to really get things right, and we force it, and we don't go on the other side of love, understanding, and forgiveness, where we start to embrace and accept the imperfections of life. And really what is the groundwork for being able to accept and embrace is this word love that a lot of people sing about and write about. But love is really the ability that gives us this the means to embrace the imperfections of another, of ourselves, and of life. Okay, so that sounds pretty good. I think everyone will be agreeing with this, but the difficult part is when you talk about these things, everyone will say, yes, we have to let go of the pain of the past. It's a very good idea. And then they try, and they try, and they try, and it's very, very difficult. So I would like to give you some tools, and that's the nice thing that we have in Buddhism. We do have tools. Okay, what does the Australian Football League do in here? That's another thing from Ajahn Brahm. He does actually use the AFL, especially when we talk about forgiveness. And the AFL stands for acknowledge, forgive, and learn. Right, how does that work? So I'll give you a general one first. So acknowledge means we actually have to feel what has happened. So often we think we can go around the pain. It might be okay in the beginning, and it might be okay to do it gradually, and sometimes we have to protect ourselves, yes, but unfortunately, if we want to let go of the pain, we have to go through it. There is no way around it. So we do have to feel what is painful for us or what we've done to someone else. So we try to feel the hurt. Then the naming is not like name calling or something, and it doesn't refer here as much to the naming that we might know from Vipassana meditation, where we say, we just name whatever there is. Yes, this is one way, but I feel sometimes it's a bit too, you're confronting yourself with something you're maybe not ready for. So this naming here stands for the virtues. So I encourage you to not think about the negative part that much, or even if it's too strong, not to name the feeling, but to name what is required to get out of that state. So forgiveness is one thing, and there can be tolerance, there can be forbearance, and there can be gentleness, and there can be all these positive things that we can develop. There can be friendship. And basically you just try to see what virtue can carry you out of that situation, what can help you to basically feel the pain and to work with it. And then the acceptance part. Often we have this tendency either to push it in and push it down, and then we don't really deal with it either. Then we don't really accept it. It's like with food, you take it in, but then you have to digest it. You have to get whatever you need to get out of it, and then you hopefully let go of it when you go to the toilet. So there is a process there. So, and the accepting is a part of it. So there is something in the hurt that we can use, like the digestion part when we are eating. Very good. Next part is forgive. Give it time. That's often what people, I mentioned it in the beginning, they think, okay, yeah, I'm forgiving, I let go, and it's done. But it will often arise again in the future. So it's really good to give it time. And another part here for forgiveness is also to ask for help. So if we do need to talk to someone about what happened, or if there is anything out there which can help us in this situation, it's very, very important to get help here. And then let it heal and let it go. But that's the last part that comes afterwards. And then the learning part is become wiser, kinder, and more compassionate. So see the silver lining of the situation, see what you can take out of it, and learn from it. Wonderful. So we do have 3 domains of forgiveness that I would like to talk about today. One is asking forgiveness and hopefully receiving it. The second one is forgiving others. And the third one is forgiving ourselves. I do feel that it's gradually getting more difficult. So the first one might be the easiest, and the second one is quite a tough one, and the third one I think is even tougher. So let's have a look at those different areas. Yeah, I hope the formatting will work afterwards. Might get a bit messy, but as you know, life is not perfect. So I hope you forgive me for that. Right, so asking for forgiveness. The chicken ceremony. I would like to tell you a story. And apparently that happened in Asia somewhere. I think it was in Thailand. And it was a husband and a wife, and they got into an argument, they got into a fight, and the husband said a lot of things he didn't really want to say, but they did come out of his mouth, and he really felt bad about it afterwards. So because he was a Buddhist though, and because in Thailand there's a lot of Buddhist monasteries around, he just couldn't deal with it at the moment at home, so he basically ran away. And the place to hide for him was the monastery. So he went to the monastery, and he went to the head monk there and tried to explain his story. And the monk was basically trying to do what I'm trying to do today, to give him some tools to work with that hurt and to practice forgiveness. But he wasn't too happy with that, and somehow it didn't work for him. So he said, look, there must be something in Buddhism that you can do to kind of solve this problem for me. So the monk thought for a while and said, okay, look, it's evening now. You better just calm down, meditate a bit, and you can sleep in the monastery and just let it all settle. And tomorrow morning, you can come and we will do a ceremony so you can let go of that hurt. Right, so he went to bed, he meditated and calmed down a bit. The next morning he was there and was like, yes. What ceremony is it? Can we do it now? And he said, yes, okay. So we're going to do the chicken ceremony to deal with what happened. He asked, the chicken ceremony? He said, yes, the chicken ceremony. How does it work? So he said, okay, you go to the market and you get a chicken for me. And on the markets in Thailand, the chickens still have their feathers. So I said, your job will be to go to the market, buy the chicken, the dead chicken, and then pluck its feathers out on the way to the monastery. So he thought, oh, that's an interesting ceremony, but I do really trust the monks, and so let's try it out. So he went to the market, got the chicken, and started pulling out the feathers on the way back. So he walked down the street, he walked down around a corner, he walked through the village, and as he was walking along, he was plucking the feathers off the chicken. Right, so that's how it must have looked like. So he came back to the monastery, and he showed the master the chicken and said, yeah, look, I've done exactly what you wanted. Here's the chicken. And then he said, okay, I'll give you the teaching now. Or actually, I'll give you the task, which is the chicken ceremony. He said, look, now I ask you to trace back where you have come from and to put all the feathers you've plucked out back into the chicken. And he didn't try, but he did get the teaching. So he understood that the things we do and the things we say, they are out there. Even if he would have tried to go back into the village, he would have tried to get back on the road, he might have found some of the feathers. But most of them were just all over the place. And basically once they're out, you can't really put them back anymore. So the teaching he took away from this is to be more mindful and to try to look forward instead of backward. So we can't really change the past. And we really have to learn to let even the hope go that we can change the past. And look what we can do in the present moment and in the future. Right, so I've took the same things again, but just for this situation now. So if you have hurt someone, oops, that wasn't skillful. You realize you've hurt someone, but you also realize that there is hurt inside. So the hurt doesn't just happen to the person outside, it also happens to the person inside. We have this beautiful simile that the Buddha gave about anger. And it says it's like picking up hot coals with bare hands, trying to throw them at someone. Who gets hurt first? And with anger, the problem is we often project it outwards. So we don't actually feel, as I was saying, we don't feel what is happening inside. So here it is acknowledging I've hurt someone and I've actually hurt myself as well. And then the most important part here is that we take responsibility for our actions, our own actions. That's the only thing we can really do. And I really like the word responsibility. Often it's a word that people don't like because it's like, oh, you have to be responsible and you're carrying a burden. But if you look at the word, it actually means the ability to respond. Responsibility. So you're asking yourself, what can I do in this present moment with whatever I have. And you learn, you get the ability to respond in a nice, in a kind, in a caring way. And then we, of course, ask forgiveness. We speak up, we reach out, and we restore trust. So asking forgiveness, if we can go and ask the person directly, of course, that's the best. Sometimes it even just helps to discuss whatever happened with someone else, or even to write an apology letter sometimes. Even though we don't send it, it can be really, really healing. And also what often happens, people die, and we didn't really have time to say what we wanted to say. There was hurt, and we would really like to ask for forgiveness. We can still do that. We just do it in our minds and basically send it to them like we send a letter, but just send it in our minds. And the good thing about this is if that does happen, we can restore the trust of a friendship. And then the release and the healing and the letting go happens. With this scenario, it's very nice that we can also experience when people forgive us. And that is very, very important. So we can actually learn to ask for forgiveness in the future again, and to actually grant forgiveness as well. But that will be the next part. But if someone asks for forgiveness, please, please always do forgive them. If you do need time, take time, but don't carry these burdens that you don't have to carry. So what we learn, we appreciate when someone forgives you. That's what I've already mentioned. And we do live up to their trust. We commit to goodness. We develop the wholesome habits, and we maintain them. So that's actually, if someone does forgive you, you should really value that trust and then commit to being nice to them and to feeding that trust and to basically keep the precepts. That's what that part involves here. And celebrate your successes, that's right. It's always important. We often forget that. Right, and avoid repeating the same mistakes. Cool, good. Let's move on to the next area, which is forgiving others. Here I have just put a chart together with the obstacles. For me, we have the hurt, as I said before, and there's two kind of sides that you can lean towards that are not that helpful. So you can fall into the category of being the victim. I have a few phrases here so you can understand. I am hurt. I am hurt. Big I. I am what happened to me. That is very important. We often define ourselves by what happened to us. And I really encourage you to not be limited by your past and to not be limited by the fears you might have into the future, because that really stops you having all these opportunities and having the ability to respond that we talked about before. Then we can fall into the victim role in terms of, it's all my fault. We feel, this happened to me because I'm a bad person, or all these kind of things that are not very helpful. Or even going to, I'm a failure. That's basically shame. Shame means I am a failure. And if you say, I've made a mistake, it's not shame. It's actually realizing what has happened and dealing with it in a nice way. And the opposite side, so that's basically the pushing in and pushing down that I talked about before. We don't really deal with what has happened. We kind of wallow in it. Oops, there was one more. I deserve to hurt. Yes, that's basically the same category. Yeah. And then on the other side, we have the victor. And that's basically once you get angry. And instead of feeling what is happening, you project it outside. And then you don't feel what's happening here. And you feel so much justification for what you're doing. So you go into the fighter mode. You hurt me, I hurt you back. Or you ruined my life. You ruined my life. It's all your fault. I show you. Or you deserve to hurt. So you can see those statements actually balance each other out. But that's the traps we can fall into. Hopefully we don't. The way to deal with this, again, it hurts. How does it feel? What do I need? So that's basically putting the Band-Aid on that we talked about before. So you first have to find out what the wound is, what happened, where it is, and then you start to apply things to it. Take responsibility for your own action. That might be a bit difficult to understand because in this situation someone hurt you. So it's very easy to go and just focus on what has happened to you because of the other person. But I do encourage you to try and stay with your own feelings, with the acknowledgement part, and see how am I dealing with this? Am I adding more pain to the pain that is already there? Or am I hopefully alleviating it? But that's something which is happening internally. And now a lot of people will say, yes, but if you're hurt and if someone is doing you injustice, you have to do something about it. Yes, you do. So if something is happening again and again and again, if there is abuse or whatever it is, I do encourage you to speak out. I do encourage you to reach out, and I do encourage you to ask for help. Because I don't want you to fall into the victim category, where you think it's my fault, this is happening to me because I'm a bad person. No, it's not. You can do something about the hurt. And you can actually ask for help and see how this situation can be solved. You can also set boundaries and protect yourself. So instead of blaming the other person, we can come back to the cause and effect that I talked about before. You can basically show the other person, if you behave this way towards me, it will have this effect. It will hurt me, it will distance me from you, it will it will make me sad, and it will lead to a separation in the end. Do you really want that happening? Instead of saying, you did this and this is all wrong, and we don't agree with what the person has done, but it still doesn't make sense to just add more on top of it. We're actually trying to resolve a situation. If there is an apology, and if a person wants to make amends, please do accept it. I know sometimes you don't feel like it, but we've talked about it before. If you were in the situation of harming someone, you sometimes really want to do something to make it good again. And it makes you feel good if you can do something. It's like with those feathers of the chicken. You can't really put them back, but you can sometimes do something which gives you a good feeling. So if a person does offer something, please accept it. Or please just find something that they can do their share with, even if it's material or whatever it is. If they can do something physically, it can actually help the person to heal, and it can help you to heal. And then release happens, healing, and let go. Now, sometimes the person hurt you and it's not possible to speak to the person, or you don't really want to confront the person. That's okay, but I still encourage you to go to the stage of release, where you are forgiving for your own sake, because you are carrying that hurt with you if you don't accept it and if you don't forgive it. It doesn't mean that you have to go up to the person and forgive the person. If you're not ready for that step, that's fine. But please at least go through the process within yourself so you can release yourself from that pain. So we don't want the pain to happen again and again and again. And that's basically what comes in the learning part there. Once you have forgiven, see the freedom of this forgiveness. See the burden of that hurt that was there before and how it drops away. And don't let others harm you again and again. That's also what we learned from here. And then remove yourself from the situation if it is required. And I think we had one more, but oh no, we didn't. Right. Now, because I don't really have a story for this part, I mean, we've all experienced hurt, yes, but I haven't experienced any huge hurt. And I found this interview that I listened to many times now, and it's just so beautiful that instead of trying to describe it for you, I just brought it with me. It's showing the process that we talked about, but it's actually from a person who has experienced it and who is talking about his experience. Right, it's about 12 minutes. Yes, wonderful. Okay, thanks a lot. Every time I do listen to this show, and I've heard it many, many times, it goes very deep, and I feel very, very emotional about it. Because there is something very beautiful about forgiveness if it goes that deep. But of course, as I was saying before, we do have to go this path gradually. So I hope this wasn't too much for anyone. I hope it was just inspiring and encouraging. The rest of the story does actually go further, where they talk about the crime that happened, but I cut that out because I don't think it's appropriate for here, but it's on the internet if someone wants to listen to it, which basically gave him the understanding of what had happened and of maybe a little bit why it had happened, and to be able to let go of that hurt all the way. It was very nice how he described this again and again and again. So that's what we were talking about before. There is this hurt that happened one time, but if we don't learn to feel it, acknowledge it, forgive it and let it go, then it's something which will be repeating. And he said the murderer almost had power over him. And that's what often happens with us. When I was saying if we fall into the victim role, then we're basically owned by our story. But if we own our story, then we're able to write the ending of the story. Then we can actually do something with it. All right, so I just have the same 3 topics again for this, for the last one, sorry. Even the murderer in the, or Ivan Simpson in this audio was saying that it was the hardest to forgive yourself, and that's just one I want to have a quick look at before we finish off. Again, we accept it hurts. How does it feel? What do I need? That's very similar. Important here is, we were talking about the perfection before, so we don't try to cure the situation. We just try to see how we can cure it. So it's basically, as we were saying, when you have a wound, you try not to scratch it or to aggravate it. You try to soothe it and to put a Band-Aid on it. That's the curing part. And the naming, don't shaming, that's the one I talked about before as well. We try to find the virtues that will help us to get out of the situation. You try to treat yourself like a friend, so it's sometimes easier for us to forgive someone else, but the same thing can be done internally to forgive ourselves. So we often talk down on ourselves, or we get harsh with ourselves. If we just imagine ourselves like a little child or like a friend, so we can maybe treat ourselves more like a friend. Same here as well, share, reach out, ask for help, release, heal and let go. And what do we learn from it? We learn from it that blame, guilt don't really motivate us to change. If there is pressure, sometimes we behave the way we're told to because there is this pressure, but we're not really intrinsically motivated to change. What really helps is encouragement, praise, appreciation. That actually really works. And there is a concept that Ajahn Brahm calls positive forgiveness, which means you do forgive, yes, but you also encourage the positive things in the other person which lift him out of this old pattern that is there. And of course, if it's too much, we have to distance ourselves. So we basically learn to care for ourselves, and through that we'll also be able to care for others and to be able to live forgiveness to its depth. Right. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope there were some things in there that have touched you, that will help you on your path. If there is any questions, I'm happy to answer questions from the ground or from the floor. But it's already quite close to 10:30 and we'll have lunch soon. Yes, please. Do we microphone or no microphone?
Yes, we can use it.
Yeah, maybe so. It's good then. We can hear the question. Yes,
thank you
please.
very much. My name's Julie.
Hello.
This is very relevant for me, and
All
before
right.
I came here I thought, I think I need to go to the temple and meditate and listen to the talk, and my dad died a couple of days ago in hospital, and
Yes.
I pretty much stayed there the whole time with him for 2.5 months and witnessed a lot of abuse, medical mistakes, nursing mistakes. I had to keep advocating for him, and
Yes.
and while I was there, I kept taking the Buddhist teachings with me, right speech, right thoughts, advocating for him in a calm way. But now he's passed, I'm feeling really angry.
Right.
Various people in the hospital, social workers, chaplains, suggested that I write complaint on behalf of the family. And I'm just listening to your thing. I've seen a little bit of the victim in me. I think I'm pretty aware of everything that's going on, but I've been not knowing whether to write a complaint or whether I'm actually blaming or anything, but I'm just a bit lost. So,
I mean, it is very, very fresh, so it does really need time, and it's good if you care for yourself at this moment in time, because the hurt is basically inside. And then you can start to write things, you can start to talk to people. Sometimes it's just good to put it on a piece of paper, and then you can still decide if you want to pass it on or not. How this speaking out, how this reaching out will happen. Because often, as you said, there is anger, which is very natural. Anger for me is basically like this wound. When you hit your leg on something, then you have the pain, which is a signal which tells you there is hurt. Something needs to be done about it. And anger is actually the same thing. But what happens with anger, as I said before, is we project it outside, and then we get justification, and then we lose touch with what is actually happening inside. So I encourage you to stay with that for a little bit longer. But if you can talk it over with people, or if you can write things down, that can definitely be very therapeutic. And if there is a problem, which I see there is, I think it is appropriate to mention it. Yeah. But forgiveness is always something, as I was saying, that you can just do for yourself, so that you don't carry that hurt. And once you've dealt with that and you feel you still want to do something, that is perfectly fine. But often we rush into it too quickly. I hope that helps. Yeah.